That falls more into the question of how we want the format of the schedule to go. Do we want divisional play again? Do we want to just play every team once in our conference and then focus on inter conference? The answer I can see is if we're going to do interconference play, we would need to only play all of our respective conference teams once, and then open up the final. I guess it would be 2 weeks, or mix in the 2 weeks however you want. Those would be devoted to interconference play. I'm not the biggest fan of that, especially for a team like Chalksy's. I think the idea that he has picked a sphere team is not a good idea in the first place. But especially now, if there is going to be interconference, it means he would have to account for Radius, Pi, Origin, Sphere, and Centra as playing servers. It's just not a feasible, good idea. And moreover, even with the seeding system, I still don't like the idea of those games determining playoff standings and maybe which teams make the playoffs. So I'm kind of, for my team personally, I don't really mind. I'm still playing Sphere, and Radius. I always think it's good to have new matchups in the league. But on the other hand, I can see how it would definitely affect captains like Chalksy, maybe even Origin captains, when they're accounting for only having to play Sphere and Origin. Now they have to play Radius all of a sudden. So I'm 50-50 on that really. I'm not 100% how I feel about the structure of our schedule yet.
It's tough to say. I mean, we always do this East and West rivalry thing. I guess if we finally do some interconference play, we'll finally get to put it to the test. Because right now, the only way we actually get to test it is, the occasional scrim or two, and that's all subjective. And then the Super Bowl, right? I mean, that's the entire East versus West boils down into one thing. I'm a big proponent of some interconference play. My thoughts on the game are that it's one game and we should have one league, not two leagues that play each other at the end of it. I really like interconference play. I think it would be pretty interesting, and it'd also be able to compare conferences. But there's a lot of problems with it potentially. So we really have to pick a system that's gonna work out for everybody, and that seems like a really hard thing to do. However, since they decided that there was only going to be 16 teams again, I really hated the way the system was this last season where you played your division twice. That just didn't make any sense to me. So if we're not doing interconference play, I don't see any other option than what we did this season, which I thought sucked. So hopefully it's interconference play.
I think it's a change that we need to make, because we're calling this whole thing MLTP when the Super Bowl is the only thing that brings the two conferences together. Regardless of the fact that the East has more talent as it stands now, that doesn't mean people can't improve. So I don't think it's a waste of time necessarily to have those matchups. I think that'll bring the interest level up in general, which is always good.
Well, I brought up for the past, I guess season 6 we had interconference play. Season 7 we didn't, and then in season 8, before the season, I brought up where you play a certain amount of weeks and then you rank the teams based on their standings inside their conference, and then you would do the opposite seeding would play each other. So if you're the 1 seed, there's 16 teams. So if you're the 1 seed in the East, you would play the 1 seed in the West, and then the 8 seed in the West. And I've brought that up for the past 2 seasons, and it's been shot down before the season each time. It seems to have picked up pace again, because I think Bali made the same suggestion during the season, and then now I feel like that would be the way to do it. I feel like it's definitely important to do a little bit, but we have to play each team inside our conference. I feel like that's priority number 1. We shouldn't skip out on any Eastern Conference teams for an Eastern Conference team to play a Western Conference team. But there should definitely be a little bit of crossover just for bragging rights, if nothing else.
So between conferences, I don't really care if it's there or not. I think it's kind of fun, but at the same time, I don't know that it really matters. I would be fine with playing just in conference and then going to intra and playoffs.
I think it brings a lot of excitement. I think being a Centra captain playing Radius teams on Spheres when they would have no real reason to draft those players only works to my advantage. So from that perspective, it's also well. And I think it allows us to get to know each other better, because in awards season, it's so hard to vote for the other league because you've never really paid attention or you've never had to scout the other team. So it definitely brings a whole new aspect of the community together, which I do like.
I've personally never been a big fan of interconference play because I've never thought that there's a way to do it 100% fairly. I've always enjoyed playing every team in your conference one time. With the 16-team league, it's harder to do that because we don't want to have a 7-week season. The division, playing every team in your division 2 times was not the best solution, but an okay one. I don't think that there is a perfect solution for interconference play. So while I'm not against it, I don't have any immediate request to add it.
It's like Levin kind of mentioned, that there's no perfect way to make the schedule, kind of based on where the servers are and how many teams there are. There's no perfect way, and so one major factor kind of has to be omitted from the equation if interconference was to happen. Either we'd have to extend the season quite a bit, reduce the season quite a bit. We'd have to have the Centra players be on a team that plays 25% of the time on Centra and 75% of the time on their non-home server. Just bad things happen no matter what happens, and I think the least bad thing is to just not play interconference and just go with what we've got right now.
I think we're gonna go with. I mean, it's a difficult situation because I think ultimately we're gonna go with the I guess what's being referred to as the Balimandius proposal, even though it existed for a long time before he proposed it, where there are 2 weeks of interconference play, sort of around 2/3 of the way through the season, and team in each conference plays the team that's ranked the same as them and like opposite them from the other conference. And I think that's a reasonably fair way to do things. But I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 because I mean I've long held the position. I mean, for seasons and seasons, I've held the position that it just all one league, that we have one stat for and all that stuff, where there's absolutely no interaction between the East and the West conferences, between the draft and the Super Bowl. Players love bitch about having bad ping, and I absolutely guarantee you that there will be just a massive amount of whining in like the reaction threads in weeks like 7 and 8 or whenever we do interconference play, about players who are like, oh man, we would have won this game if we weren't playing on Sphere or whatever, because of course there'll be a ton of Central Radius games and Sphere Radius games. So I mean, you can't make everyone happy, but we're probably going to do an interconference play just because it makes more sense and forces players to adapt their playstyle. And I look forward to when those weeks roll around and people whine in the reaction threads, someone linking to this YouTube clip or whatever where I say this, because I guarantee that this will come true.
Some Radius teams will play Origin teams, and others won't. Others will have to play a Center team.
I mean, assuming that we do go with the quote-unquote Balimandius proposal, it is it'll essentially be random because, I mean, not if you ask JJ Poole, because he'll just assume that all the Center teams will be at the bottom. But yeah, it'll essentially be random in terms of which teams play teams from which other servers. 7 out of 8 teams from the Eastern Conference will be Radius, 3 Central, 1 Sphere, and 4 Origin from the Western Conference. So I mean, odds are that almost every team likes some Sphere, so people will whine about that.
Well, I guess the most important thing would be, this is a really flippant answer, would be to be good already and be known.
Right.
But beside that, when I start getting into the deeper parts of the draft, when I'm going for people who may not be as well known, because I'm the only Sphere team, I'm going to be doubling down on that, I think, and really focusing on talent in Sphere. So, impress me in Sphere tryouts. And I also, while I'm looking for skill, I do really like people who have a good awareness of the entire board, or the entire game at one time, which is a skill that I think only a few people really have down. And to communicate that during tryouts, just, with your gameplay and with what you say, show awareness of what's going on around you.
On the note of Sphere, what do you have to say to captains who have expressed some doubt about your server choice and whether or not you'll be able to field a team or even pick a preliminary player who can do well on the 3 servers, Sphere, Origin, and Centra?
Well, first of all, I'll say it wasn't really a choice. I was kind of assigned Sphere, and I didn't really name a preference either way. That said, I do think that there are going to be challenges with being the only Sphere team. I know I had those challenges in Season 8, and my team record certainly reflects at least that. Depending on how the schedule gets voted on, I'm probably playing significantly more Sphere and Origin than I am anything else, which I think is good. I know a lot of Sphere players get decent ping on Origin. Not be said of Centra players to Origin, I think. I might have to double check that. But either way, I think I'm going to focus very heavily on Sphere talent and just dominate on that server.
Last season in the West, I would really say there was only one good captain, and even by his own admission, he doesn't even think he was that good of a captain. So I think the West definitely has some work to do.